This is the second chapter of the Excel module, EX2, in the textbook, and what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be producing this worksheet here. This worksheet is something that is typical of a person who is new to the Excel world and will be out in the starting their career, and their boss will say, set me up something like this. And you'll be given basic data that looks much like this. Basically, you're going to be given the basics of there's the employee, there's the dependents, there's the hours worked, the hourly pay, and the hire date. And you'll be asked to produce something like this. So we're going to learn how to do this today in this lesson. We're going to do some formulas down here. We're going to do some conditional formatting. And conditional formatting is the highlighting of a cell with filler and font changes according to what's in that cell. So if this one here, this conditional formatting of this range here, is anything greater than 70, makes a different color cell. So if I went to this one and make this 68, you see how the color changes, right? I'll just revert back. So we're going to build that today. So let's start out. Here's the data that we're given in the in this particular lesson, and we're going to start out by pushing the hire date over with 5 columns in the middle here. So in order to do that, I'm going to highlight 5 columns like this, and again, make sure your mouse is actually touching the top area here, not the white area when you select like that. If you go like this, all right, see how my mouse is like that? It's not the same thing. You're selecting everything that looks kind of the same, but it's not, because if when you right click insert, it's not going to work quite the same. Touch the top part and select it all the way over 5 columns. That selects everything, every possible row down to the middle of the earth. Alright, so right click, insert, that shoves everything over. Now let's look at the headings that we have to have here. I'm just going to copy them over for quickness here. You can see how they're done yourself by just typing them. So I'm just going to put them there. So what we have here is the employee and the number of dependents that each employee has, such as kids or non-working spouse. The hours worked per week, or yeah, no, it'd be it looks like a 2-week period. And then this is the hourly pay. We're going to figure out the gross pay. Federal taxes are going to be provided, state tax, etc. All right. Let's try and figure out how to make these more visible, because that's kind of annoying having these hidden behind the cell to the right. So I'm going to highlight this area here. I'm going to go up to wrap text, and it does exactly what the icon implies. It's going to wrap the text, making sure you can see it all within one cell without having to widen the columns, and that's the kind of thing you want. I'm going to insert a couple of rows above this, because that's what we're aiming for here. I've got up here. So let's do that. So I'm going to highlight the rows in which they're going to be rows above. I want 2 of them, so I right click insert and it bumps it up. There is 2 things that we have to put here. One is Hypermass online storage and the salary report. So I'll just copy this over. You would type this yourself. There we are. You'll type that in A1 and salary report in A2. We're going to center these. So I highlight the range I want to center it on. I do merge and center. Same with salary report. Now you do these 1 row at a time. You don't do them in mass, because it won't work properly. Okay? Like you don't do this. Highlight both. Like that's a mistake. That is there. Alright? See, it's all messed up. Don't do that. So do 1 row at a time like this, and then merge and center. Alright, now what we're going to do now is start doing some formulas. We're going to figure out how much gross pay they've had in this 2-week period. I'm going to type equals, because that's how we start formulas. Remember that? So equals, I want to have multiply that multiplied by that. All right. So I point at it, do the star, and then press point at D4, press enter. All right. Now, as you know, you can grab the little nubby thing here, the fill icon or the fill tool, and pull it all the way down. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to do everything else and then pull them all down. Federal tax is 22% of your gross pay. However, it goes down by the number of dependents you have and the the rate that each dependent is worth. Let me illustrate this. Equals 0.22 is the percentage that you're taxed. I'm going to multiply this by your gross pay, but I'm going to reduce the gross pay by the number of dependents you have times $24.82. Okay, so before I press enter and this disappears, I'm going to explain this to you. Alright, you remember BEDMAS, brackets, exponents, division, multiplication, addition, subtraction. Alright, so Excel is very much adheres to the rules of BEDMAS, obviously, because it's math. And so it would do the brackets first. Alright, you see the brackets here. So what is inside those brackets? Forget about the 0.22 and the times right now, but in the brackets it says, okay, if I want to figure out what my base is for tax purposes, I take my gross pay and then I take away a credit. Well, I kind of get a credit for the number of dependents I have. There's 3 dependents. Each one of them is $24.82. These numbers are given to you by the federal government to declare how much your gross income, E4, is going to go down by the number of dependents you have. And then because you have a lesser income and you multiply by 0.22, your taxes actually go down. So that means that you are actually getting subsidized a bit for your dependents that you have. So I'm going to press enter. $242. State tax is very simple. 0.04. Oh, sorry. It's the equal sign. 0.04 or 4% times your gross pay. Press enter. Now the tax percentage. Here we go. I'm going to try and figure out what that is. Add them up. So these two numbers. See how I highlighted this here? 242 plus the 47. Look at the bottom down here. See my mouse? It's got 290. So you can do that very quickly in the Excel world. There's 2 counts here. The average of those two is that number, which is kind of meaningless. But you can do that with everything. Highlight this. Summations at the bottom here. All right. Highlight this. Summations at the bottom and the number of items. Anyway, tax. We're going to figure out that number, the total of these two numbers, which is the 290 divided by 1178. All right. Let's do it. Equals sign. I'm going to do it the wrong way first. Okay, divided by that. Alright, this is completely wrong. And notice why. Because if I'm using BEDMAS and I'm doing my, there's no brackets, there's no exponents, so I'm into division and multiplication, right? Next, there's your division first. So it would take $47 divided by 1178, which is a weird number, plus F4, which is totally wrong in terms of the math. So what you have to do is you have to put brackets here. Alright, so I'm just doing that right now. And that accumulates the taxes first, the 242 and the 47, and then you divide it by the overall gross pay. So remember that. Press enter. So in the business world, what you're going to be doing is not just, there's 2 types of Excel users. There's the ones that just use Excel, but are just data entry people and reporting people. And then there's the people who actually develop the worksheets. As business graduates in the business world, you will be expected to create these formulas. All right, that's your value added. That's why you get paid the higher bucks, and that's why you take the responsibility. All right, so you got to figure out this stuff, and it takes practice, and you have to make mistakes, and you just have to do it. All right. Now you'll notice here I've got 240. Inside these formulas here, I've got explicit numbers. The 0.22 you see up in where my mouse is pointing right now. 0.22 is the taxes, and then $24.82 is the credit for each dependent. The way I did this is completely bad. It's bad practice. This is the way it's presented in the textbook, but it's not the right way to do it. You should be referring to another cell for this rather than putting it into the formula. Similarly with the tax rate, that 0.04 should not be actually built into the formula. But I'll show you that in a little bit, one step at a time. Alright? Okay, net pay is a formula again. Basically it's your gross pay, take away your taxes. Alright, so it's going to be a formula again equals your E4 minus your federal tax minus your state tax, and you end up with your overall net pay. Okay, now I'm going to drag this down like this. See how fast and easy that is? However, before I do that, I'm going to undo that. I'm going to fix up what I talked about earlier, or just a few seconds ago, about the what did I say? The numbers built into formulas. Now I'm going to be doing 1, 2, 3, 4 cells down here for other stuff, but here I'm going to put down something called the federal tax rate. All right, federal tax rate. And I'm going to go 0.22 here. Now some of you savvy students out here are going, aha, I see what he's getting at. I see what he's getting at. So what I'm going to do here is, rather than have the 0.22 built right into in the formula, I'm going to back a bit here. I'm going to put down this cell here, which is B18. Okay, there it is. It's substituted. And then I'm going to go to the end of that little area here. Let's just press enter. And you'll see it comes back with exactly the same number. So what have I done here? Rather than put the 0.22 right inside the formula, I've got it referenced externally here. And what that means is, if the feds come back and increase their taxes to say 50%, 0.50, it changes them automatically, right? And you only have to do it one spot, which is this cell down here. Not all the formulas, and that's the reason that it's bad practice to put in the real numbers actually in the formulas. You should reference them. Let's look at the dependent rate. So I'll put that down here. Dependent rate. There we are. Dependent rate, and what was it? $24.82, I think. Yep. $24.82. So the same thing applies here. Rather than have it built into the formula, I'm going to point at it. And I'm going to point at B20. Press enter. Alright. So now you see that if this goes up to, say, $2,000, let's say, alright, you actually get a tax rebate. But it's not ever going to be like that. So back to 2482 again. So you see how it's beneficial to have it as an external resource, you point at it, an external cell. State tax is the same thing. Let's throw that in here. State tax, and then that's going to be 0.04%, 0.04, oops, not 0.04, 0.04. Go to state tax and change that first part of the formula from an explicit number to a cell. Press enter. And you've got the same number, obviously. Again, if the state tax is, one more time, I know you're getting tired of this, 0.3 goes up to a big number. Alright, so I'll just revert. We're not quite finished yet, and the reason for that is that if I, and I've told you this I think in the previous video, that when you have a formula in here, it really is just a pattern. Alright, what does this pattern say right here? It says go over 2 columns, right? There's the C4. Go over 2 columns and then multiply by what's over by 1 column. All right, it really just follows a pattern. If I drag the little nubby thing, it's all you're telling it to do is follow the pattern. Go over 2 columns and multiply by the one that's 1 column over. All right, so let's just delete that. This here is a formula, so it's doing the same thing. It's telling you to do a pattern. Go to this one, so go all the way across. I wish I could point at it, but I can't because I'm not actually here with you. See, if I go down to all these cells, so there's your pattern. So basically go over 4 columns and down, what is that, 15 rows to see what's in there. That's what that formula says. And then multiply by E4, which is the one beside it, minus the B that's over 4 times B20, which is way down here. All right, so it's just following a pattern. So if I grab this little nubby thing here, you would expect that the pattern would be adhered to. Watch this. It's a mess. All right, so the puzzle is, why is it a mess? Well, if I go to the next one here, all right, B19, 0.04, all right, times E5. What's E5? There is nothing in E5. It's missing. All right, and what's in B5? Well, there's the 0 over here, which is fine. You know, we want to look at this row, fine. But when we're looking down the way, it's in the wrong area here. This should be looking at the 18, not the one below it. And that's because it's following a pattern. It's saying 1, 2, 3, 4, going down 15 rows. So there's the next one. And then here, when I go to this one, it says go over B20, 4 columns, and down 15 rows to this one. And then this one here, well, no, this one, B21, 1, 2, 3, 4 columns, and then down 15 rows to this spot. So the pattern works, but it's not what we want. What we want to do here is we want to nail down any references that we do not want to follow the pattern. I'll say that again. I want to nail down the references that we do not want to follow the pattern. How do I get rid of this thing again? Keep the color scheme and don't show. Yeah, go away. All right. So I want to keep that in that spot and not move with the pattern. So what I have to do is I have to nail it down. And the way you do that is you take your mouse and you touch anywhere on the cell, anywhere, in front of the B. We want to nail this B18 down, right? You can go at the end of the 8, between the 1 and the 8, between the B and the 1, in front of the B, whatever you want, and then press your F4 key on your keyboard. All right, so just press it once, and it puts dollar signs in front of the B and in front of the 18. If you press it again, it does a different type. Again. See how it rotates around? So it's back to the original again. And then one more time, there it comes back to the nailing down. Okay, and you do the same thing with anything else you want to nail down in the formula, which happens to be the dependent rate. You'll see that's the green one here, and the green one up here. Touch anywhere on the number, B20, and press the F4 key. And then go to the end of the formula and press enter. Alright, let's see if this works now. If I drag this down, well, let's do the gross pay. We'll make sure we have a proper reference here. And then we'll go here and we'll pull this one down. Alright? And it works, all right, because you've told the system to follow the pattern except for the cells that are nailed down with the F4 key. And that's called absolute referencing. So this one here is relative referencing. It's all relative. This one here has a mixture of relative and absolute referencing. Relative meaning it's still looking to the one beside and it follows the pattern relative to one before. And the absolutes are built into the formula as well. State tax, same thing. If I pull this down, it's a mess. Alright, I undo it, and that's because I want to nail down the 0.04. I don't want that to move with the pattern. So I go back to the G4, I go up to where it says B19 because I want to nail that one down, not move with the pattern. Press F4 once, press enter. Nothing changes on the first formula, but when I drag it down, everything is okay. Alright, taxes, no big deal. There's nothing special down here that we have to reference. Same with net pay. I can highlight both of them and pull them down. Alright, now I want to insert totals here. Totals. And then I want to put down, where are we adding for? Let's see what we're aiming for here. Highest, lowest, and average. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to copy these just for quickness. There we go, highest, lowest, and average. I'll unbold this because that's not what you've got. Now I want to total these columns here, all from dependents over to net pay. And what's the fastest way of doing that? This is not the way to do it. Alright, this is not the way to do it. If you do this is you're being a bad person. Alright, see that? Bad. It's too time consuming. Go over to the auto sum over here. No need for the drop down. The auto sum is the big one that's the default. Click it. It finds all the data above it and plunks it into a formula called sum, which adds up stuff inside the brackets. B4, the first cell, 2 is the colon, meaning go from B4 to B12 and press enter. Now I'm going to pull this over and I want you to be critical of what I'm doing here. Okay. So of these numbers that have been totaled here, which ones don't make any sense at all? Alright, does this make any sense? 18 dependents. Well, I suppose it's a limited use, but what the hell? 18 dependents of our employees. the hours worked 598. Yeah, that makes some sense. Let's go to gross pay. That's a good thing. It's nice to know how much pay we've used in the last 2 weeks. Federal taxes, these two numbers are necessary to submit to the government on behalf of the employees. And the net pay is something we need for cash flow and to make sure that we have the money in the bank to pay the people when they need it. Tax makes no difference, no sense whatsoever. The tax here is a percentage, all right, of the gross pay. This number here divided by this number. Remember, that's how this is calculated. It is the total taxes, the federal and the state, divided by the gross. 225% or 2.25 makes no sense. I'm going to get rid of it. And then the hourly pay over here makes no sense either, although it might signal something about your overall cost per hour, but really it's not of total value really from a managerial perspective. I'm going to press enter on that too. Okay, now you can still if you think about this is a pattern that we still want to use. So although this pattern here, right, is summation all the way across except for the ones we deleted, this one here is a pattern we want to use one cell below. If I drag this down, it's 0.25, which is this number here, 2435, plus the 465 divided by 1115. That's a reasonably useful number that you might want to know about. Okay, there's no point in adding up all the higher dates. That makes zero sense as well. Let's do the other stuff here, the highest and the lowest. The way you do that is you go equal max. That's a formula, and it says so here in the little pop-up that Excel provides you. It says returns the largest value in a set of values. All right, and then open bracket, and then scoop out the range that you want. And make sure I am not going to touch the 18 here, because that doesn't make any sense. I want to find the highest in the range that makes up the 18, but not the 18 itself. Press the close bracket. All right, so notice that the running of these formulas here, the max, you're doing it manually. Let's do it again with the low. This is actually min, the formula. All right, let me do that again. It shows you returns the smallest number in a set of values. Start off the set with the bracket, scoop it out with your mouse. I'm holding down the left mouse button, letting go, closing the bracket, pressing enter. All right, the average, again, you could do this one here. Let me just show you here. If I could go up here and do the auto one, average. Look at the mistake it's making though. It's averaging the stuff just above it. These ones here, 18, 4, and 0, which are no good at all in terms of averaging 3 down to 4, like 3 Carl down to Jin, right? So that makes zero sense. So don't rely on these things totally. You have to make sure that it makes sense for your needs. I'm going to press escape. Equals average. So I have to scoop it out myself, right? Open the bracket, scoop out the range that I want to average, then close the bracket. Okay, now that that's all done, this is what I don't want you to do. One at a time. Don't want you to do that. Undo. Be efficient. Grab them all, take your nubby, drag it over, and let go. Okay? Okay, now this all looks kind of kludgy looking. It's not very pleasant on the eyes, and we haven't done conditional formatting yet, which we will though soon. This is what we're aiming for here. Look at the way the fonts are depicted. You've got the 7s and the 9s all slightly lower than the rest. The 3 is lower as well, so that's a font. And the color scheme here is a different style. So what we're going to do here is apply a theme. Just like in the Word world. Oops, wrong one. Word world, there's a tongue twister. There are things called themes. So let's do a theme. Page layout. Right, click on the page layout. We want to find the basis theme. On the left hand side there's themes. When you choose this, it applies different default fonts and provides different styles. So there's your basis font. You see as I hover over these things how it looks differently as I hover until I commit. Right, there's a heavy duty one. Let's go to basis, click it, and you'll see that the font has been applied. If I go to home, what is that font? It's Carbel, I don't know how you say that. Okay, now I want to change the styles here. So the first thing I want to do is I want to highlight the heading here. I want to go to styles, so that's up here in cell styles right here. Yours might look slightly different. Drop down, and I want to find accent, this one here, accent 160%. Okay, is that true? Let me make sure. Yeah. And I also want to change the font. I'm going to change the font to black. There's your A with the red thing underneath it, so we'll make it black. We'll increase it 16 to 16 point, and we'll bold it. Alright. Let's put a nice big thick border around this. See the border here on the left hand, right side and the bottom? That is like a cell border. If I take a look at the print preview, file, print, there's your thick border. We want to have that on ours. I'll go back. This is ours that we're working on. How do you do that? Well, all I do is highlight the cells that I want to have the border around. Right? You don't do them one at a time, but all of them. And then you go to the border tool right here, right above the word font. Click on the drop down and find yourself outside borders or the thick box border. And you can kind of see a depiction in the middle here, or in the left here, as to what it kind of looks like. So click on a thick box border, and you'll see that it's showed on the right and the bottom again. Again, if you can't see the whole thing, or you want to see the whole thing to make sure it's done right, go to File, Print. There it is there. Now you'll see that the actual worksheet is cut over 2 pages. We're going to get to that in a little bit. See, there's your second page. Isn't that ugly? Alright, we'll sort that out in a bit. Alright, next thing, I want to make this one here, this area here, I want to make that something. Let me just check my notes here. We want to make that heading 3. So I've highlighted the row that we want to do. I'm going to Cell Styles, Heading 3. There we are. Let's center these things. All right, I kind of like these centered. I don't want the first one centered, just these ones. Centering icon. That's better. Let's now use a total style down here. All right, so I'm choosing total all the way across, and then I'm going to go to Cell Styles, Total. There we are. And now I'm going to fix up the dollarization, the commas and everything, and the percentage. Alright, let's start off with the commas. That's the first thing you should always do, because commas throw in 2 decimal places and commas where appropriate. So you don't want things like long, weird decimal places like that. That's just ridiculous. Alright, so I'm going to highlight all the numbers, going up to my comma formatting, and now all of a sudden it's much more pleasant to look at. Let's do dollar signs where appropriate. I want the accounting dollar sign on the very top of the row of numbers, and then also where it's accumulated, and also for all of these numbers here. No, actually we're going to use currency down here. Alright, currency, just to show you the difference. So we're doing accounting up here, and notice I'm purposely going over the tax here, because this should not be dollars, but we'll get to that. I'm going to click on the accounting dollars. There we are. I'm going to do this one here as well. Dollars. There we are. And then this one I'm going to make it currency. Alright, so currency is this one here. And you notice the difference between the currency and the dollars, right? The counting, the dollar sign here in the currency is tight to the number. It's called a floating dollar sign because it floats closest to the first digit. And then these are counting, which are offset. There's space between the number. They're left justified and the number's right justified. That's the difference. You will have that being tested on your assignments and your exam. You must know the difference between a floating currency and an accounting dollar sign. Fix up the tax percentages here. Highlight this whole column here. Go up to percentage. It changes it into percentage, which is appropriate. You might be wondering why in this formula I create a 0.25. Alright, let me just change that back to the number again. The 0.25, right? Why don't I just put a multiplied by a $sign or 100 here to get the real percentage? Well, the reason for that is you might want to use these percentages for something else, and if you put a dollar in here, like it multiplied by 100 to give it a whole number, then you might not be able to use that number properly in your intended new use of them. So the easiest thing is just to reformat it. Right, that's the whole point of this. So I'm just going to format it as percentage. Now you'll notice here that it's rounded it to the closest whole number. Here you got zeros, which indicate the increased decimal places. So if I increase that a couple, that is what it really is as a math calculation in the background. If I reduce the decimal places, it rounds it up. It does the proper mathematical rounding. Okay. Same thing here. I want to change that to decimal places and then increase the decimal places. Here I want to use the dollars. Alright, so there we have it. Now we're going to do the conditional formatting, and we're going to change the date here and do some more do some printing stuff and then some header. So hang in with me, we got about 4 minutes left. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is conditional formatting. On this column of numbers, I want to highlight only the numbers that are greater than 70. And so to do that, I highlight the numbers, I click on conditional formatting. There's a bunch of ways of doing this, but I want you to use the new rule. I want to choose format only the cells, these cells here. These format only the cells that have greater than, so I'm doing the drop down here. Notice how it's different when you choose the different kind of operator. When it's greater than, click on or type 70 here. So far what you've told Excel to do is in this range here, check out all the cells, each cell value in that range. When you find one that's greater than 70, do something. And this part here is what the something is. So click on Format. I want to fill the cell in a dark red with a font color that is white. So here's your colors. Drop down, white. Can't see it in the preview, but click OK. Click OK, and you'll see that it works. Alright, if I just test it by making this 69, you'll see how it works. Alright, and recall. Now, if you see the hashes like this, remember what I said in the last lesson? That just means that you are squeezing your columns too tightly. But what I want to do first is I want to actually change the column widths. Forgot I was going to do that. So column G, I want a actual width, explicit width of 10.25. And if you move your column around, you'll see there's your width here with a number and then pixels. So rather than try and do that by eye, which can be kind of difficult, it's easy there, but kind of harder to do, highlight the top part just like you're inserting or deleting a column, right click, and then click on column width, and I want to make that 10.25. So that's a little bit easier than trying to eyeball it with the mouse. I want to change columns C, D, and H to 7.5 in a width. C, I'm holding down my control button, D, holding down my control button, and H. So I've selected multiple things that are separated, so you have to use the control button for that. Remember, when you're doing the control button, you only do it after the first selection. So I'm not touching the control button at this point. Now I am. Here we go. Now I am. Then I can press D, then I can press H. Let go of everything. Now right click over this one, or it doesn't matter which one you right click over. Column width, we want it to be 7.5. Okay, let's do E and F. So I'm going to highlight both of those in one scoop, making this a width of 10.5. Alright, and then the last one I thought I was going to do, but it doesn't seem to be asked for, so I'm going to automatically widen this to the necessary width, and you do that by double clicking between any of the columns beside it. So between H and I, or I and J, look at the arrows left and right. When you see them, double click, and it widens it to match the maximum width and get rid of the hashes. Now, the next thing I want to do is there's hashes here. Double click in there. And then I want to do rows. Row height. Row height here for row 3 is going to be 48. So it's the same deal as the columns. Row height is 48. And then for row 14, the height is going to be 27. Now remember, when you're selecting these things, I can't emphasize this enough. Notice my mouse is not doing this. This is bad. Although you think you might be doing the same thing because this is highlighted, the 14 is highlighted, you're not doing the same thing. Touch the 14, not the white stuff, the 14. Alright, right click, row height 27. That's the height. Okay, gives it some breathing room between the two without having to add another row. Next thing, we want to do the printing. So let's do the printing and then the header. So let's go back to what the problem is again. File, print. You'll see that we have down at the bottom here 2 pages. There's your second page, there's your first page. And we've still got the hashes going on here. We'll fix that up. This is what you will actually get out of your printer should you print right now. So I want to fix that up. The way you do that is check the scaling area over here. Actually, that's wrong. Sorry. Go back to this. You want to declare the print area that you are interested in printing. Before I do that, look at this dotted line here. See the dotted line between tax percentage and net pay? This thing? That is an indicator of how the printing is going to happen. On the left hand side here, this is print page 1. On the right hand side, that's the next page, print 2 usually. Alright, so if you see dotted lines here, your print job is going to be kind of mucked up. So we're going to highlight from A all the way down to here. Alright, we're going to tell Excel that we want to print this entire area here. So we go to page layout, print area, and then set the print area. Okay, nothing much happens, nothing is actually changes on the screen here. You've still got the dotted line, but now when you go back to File, Print, alright, still the same. The scaling here understands what area you want to actually print because we just declared it. So I'm going to click on this, fit the sheet to one page, and you'll see how it's nicely put into one page. But we got a little air up here on the top and the bottom. I want to make better use of the paper and make the size of the fonts a little bigger because of that. I want to change my orientation. So drop down, change it to landscape. The table does not rotate, but the page does. And this is what will come out of your printer. Okay. Notice how nicely balanced it is in the middle of the screen. We also have the hashes going on here, which that's what we'll print here in this column here and this one. Let's go back to our working column here. We want to just widen this slightly. Widen this slightly. Let's check the print preview. File, print, and the hashes are gone. Alright, so this is a bit of trial and error to make that work for you. Last thing we're going to do is the headers. And the way you do headers, obviously you get rid of the print preview, you go to Insert, and then on the on this column, this ribbon here, you should find headers. It's usually around here, but depending on how squeezed your screen is, it will be consolidated into an area, and that area here in my case is text. Alright, you see you got header and footer here. So I'm going to click on header, footer, and it comes back with a view that looks like this. And this is where you would actually put down the author of the actual document, and then what is your title? Well, I'm a financial person. Alright, something like that. Actually P. It's capital P. Alright, so that's the header. Now that's not actually visible when you're using the worksheet. If I go back to regular worksheet view, which is down at the bottom here, you see my mouse? See how it's going back to normal? You don't see the header until you're in the different view, page layout view. See that? See the difference? Alright. So if I go to File, Print, you'll see the name at the top of the header here. Okay, so that is the, oh no, it's not the end of this lesson. I've got one more thing to do. The higher date. Now, here in Canada, because we are straddling between American influence and British influence in the way we depict dates, these dates are hard to understand. Americans understand it perfectly, the British understand it perfectly depending on how they do it, but we get confused because we're influenced by two different methods. Is this May 4th or is it April 5th? The way I do this to figure this out is I look at the one that down here to give me a clue. Because there's only 12 months in the year, then this first number must be the regular day. Alright, so therefore this one is April 5th. The problem with all that excessive thinking is that it burns out some synapses in my brain, it's too taxing. So I'd rather change the way this is depicted or viewed or displayed. So I'm going to highlight this area here. I'm going to right click. I'm going down to Format Cells. Comes back with the date formatting. And I'm going to choose something that's more pleasant and more Canadian useful. March 14th is what I want. Now, that is just an example of how the date is going to be shown. It's not going to show as March 14th. This is what it's going to show, April 5th. So it will show you that the very first data set in that range that we selected is going to be April 5th. That's how it's going to show. And click OK. And there we go. Alright, so that's a lot more informative for us Canadians than the way I was showing you earlier. How does this print now? Because I've declared this area as wanting to print and I want it on one page, I can go File, Print, and you'll see it all on one page. Alright, so that's the end of this lesson. Try this yourself and good luck.